I would say that no pressure, but I think that it is time for us to step it up. We had a talk with our coaches the other day, and we were just talking about how we take things for granted. How freshmen be like, oh, I have so many more years left, and seniors are like, I have so many more games left. And I just think that me and Kate should start making people step up now. I think that we've been a little too relaxed and, we're okay with losing and it's not okay with me personally. Even though we won last year, I have a ring, I've got all these accolades. Like, I didn't want to end my senior year on a bad note either.
What do you feel like went wrong the other day? I mean, that one just didn't go good from the start.
Yeah, we just started off really slow and they started off fast. It looked like they want to be there and we didn't. And I don't know why, because at the hotel everything was good, shoot around was good, practice. I mean, I don't know. Everybody was bonding, we were smiling, laughing, and then when game came, it's just like something shifted.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the food they fed us.
Is that in your? You talked about you and Kate needing to step up and make him. Is that in your nature, or do you got to kind of stretch a little bit to do that?
I think that I have a really good bond with these girls, so I think that I can tell them. Kate does too, but some of us come from the same background, so I think that it might be a different level there with that. So I'm able to go to the girls like, hey, this is what y'all need to do. This is what we need to do to win. We talk every day. All of us talk, and we still joke, we still smile. We don't let losing just affect us. Like, it's life. Everyone takes a loss in life, and if you dwell on it, then you're gonna keep losing in life.
Go ahead. The season has kind of been like this, a roller coaster, ups, downs. What have you learned from those earlier downs that maybe you can utilize to get that upswing again?
We just kind of tell them we've been here before. We know how it feels. So I don't think it hurts as much sometimes, but sometimes it's due because it's like we keep losing and then we win and then we lose two and then we win two. And it's just like at one point we need to get consistent, more so hopefully with the winning rather than the losing. So I think that it's easy to say, hey, y'all, we've been here before and we know how to take a step farther from where the point that we're at now.
Are there things when you look at some of the wins that you can look at and say, that's part of the reason why? That's part of the reason why when we've won those games, we've been able to do so?
Yeah, we've had like really good practices, really good shoot around. I think that you could tell everyone's locked in. No one's really on social media. We're just kind of like locked in. We don't let anybody distract us. Stuff like that. So the wins are when we're so focused in practice that nothing can distract us.
In terms of trying to clean up some of the turnovers, obviously y'all have had games where you haven't had a lot of turnovers. Is that a mindset? I mean, obviously sometimes the other team just forces it. But
Yeah. I think that it has a lot to do with spacing. When you're a really good shooter and you're not as good, you have to be on certain sides of the floor. Someone's a dominant right-hand driver. You will want your shooter on that side so that the defense isn't really sacking in, or if it's a post who can pick and pop. I think it's all about our spacing right now with our turnovers. Some of it is just passes that, which happens, which we turn people over with just passing the ball in. I think our biggest concern right now is spacing.
Jamie, do you think there was a hangover a little bit from that Oklahoma game?
Yes, I think that we were tired. Going into overtime, I looked at some of our minutes, and I was like, some of us haven't played that many minutes in a long time. So I think that, even though we had a day off, I think we were still feeling that tiredness, and then on top of that, we lost after blowing a 14-point lead, and I think that kind of weighed on us a little.
What do you remember about Kansas State? Seems like it's been a minute since y'all played.
I remember I had to guard the post, and I was down in the post most of the time, so I am not ready to do that again. Smallest person on the court, we're probably one of the biggest people on the block. It's not like I'm guarding on the perimeter, so that's going to be a challenge for me once again.
Seems like we've seen you more in the paint lately, both defensively and offensively. Has it been more, or are we just noticing it?
Yeah, it has been more. I think I've been attacking a little more, and I think it's because I kind of switched my mindset, like, okay, last couple of games, I just need to be there for my team more. I think I kind of relaxed a little too much, and it was kind of hurting the team. So I thought that, if I attack more and put more pressure on the defense, then it'll help my team win.
Jamie, how do you balance looking at this game as, okay, this might be the perfect time to play a bottom two team in the standings of the Big 12 versus we got to treat it and get an outcome that looks like we played a bottom two team?
Yeah, I think we need to look at everybody as they're the number one team in the conference because anyone could lose. K-State beat Iowa State. Iowa State beat Texas. OSU beat Texas. OSU beat us. It doesn't matter, really, in this league, So I think that we need to treat every single team, whether they're the bottom or the top, like they're the number one team in the conference.
Thanks, Jamie.
You're welcome.
I don't think I've ever put that big a terminology. I just know we lost 2 in a row before, and we happened to have K-State up at that point too, and that catapulted us that win to 3 in a row. And so I think to me, it's just about being better than we were the last game. Playing with a little more energy and effort, being really dialed in from the first possession defensively. I'm not suggesting we were good offensively, but I think so much of our success is predicated on do we do a good job defensively and allowing our offense to come along as the game goes on. And so, I just look at it as, we have another chance to be a good basketball team, and that's what our goal should be.
Coach, you talked about it, it's kind of been that season of roller coasters. How much do you learn from each down in the season that you can utilize the next time one comes around?
You always say you learn more from a loss than you do from a win. Sometimes just because you have their attention more when things are good, it's easy for the mistakes you made to be covered up, and then when you lose, the mistakes are amplified. And even if we look at the OU game, as much as you want to focus on the last 2.5 minutes or whatever, there were a lot of mistakes that were made throughout the course of that game, even as we were building a lead that maybe is different. Maybe we've cleared our bench if we haven't made those mistakes earlier, and maybe we're not tired in overtime if we do a better job of executing through the course of the game, and then we can more comfortably play more people. So I just think it's about, do you have enough players that are willing to look in the mirror after a loss and own where each can be better, because I think if everyone gets a little better, then we get better, and that's just, it's how I look at the game. I don't ever look at the game as I had a great game plan and the players played poorly. I don't ever look at it that way. I'm always self-evaluating, even from a recruiting perspective. If we had Dre and Asia eligible, would we be a different team? Yes. But do I need to think about depth more and going forward? So you're always evaluating, where you can be better, how we can be better, how we can prepare better. Is it a tweak in how we start practice? Is it we tried to make practices last week more competitive in terms of scoring everything, from do our guards get the corners covered in transition? They can get points for that. Do we get guard defensive rebounds? They get more than a point for that, because we're relying too much on our forwards to rebound the basketball, and our guards aren't doing enough of it. So can we create ways, to get them to do some of the things that we're not as good at, and do it in a positive way? Challenge them and say, you actually get to score if you do these things. And so, I think it's that. I think you have to be resilient. you know? I mean, there's a reason why teams that get on a roll keep rolling. And there's a reason why teams that get on a roll in a bad direction, it's easy for that to snowball as well. And so you have to be good at having a short-term memory and being able to like remember like what you did to go 3-0 in the league, and then what you did to win 3 in a row, and like that team is still in us too, and so I think it's about pulling those things out.
When you played Kansas State here the first time, we had a lot of success, 28 assists on 29 field goals. What are some of the things you can take away from that performance that you want to replicate?
Yeah, I think we were bad at the beginning of the game. I think both teams were bad. It was how quickly can we fire a three at both ends of the floor. And I think as the game went along and we touched the paint first, then we made threes. Obviously, Caitlin was a big part of that. When she gets a high post touch, when she gets a short corner touch, we're really, really good. I think they're probably either going to tweak their zone to try to take away her catches, or they're going to play their switching man-to-man, which they've played a lot more of lately now. Some of the reason they've played more man lately is teams feel like they can't man Iowa State and Oklahoma, and that's been, some of their more recent games. They've played more man, but, those are teams that you're uncomfortable zoning because of how quickly they can make threes. And so, is that how they're trending, or was that opponent? So you're looking at that a little bit, but I do feel like we shot such a high percentage because of the shots we got. So they've got to find a way to eliminate that a little bit. And so, I think we've got to continue to find ways to get high post touches against their zone if they play zone. And then we've got to do a good job of handling switching man if that's the case. And we haven't really faced like the type of switching man that they do since Maryland. Because it's really all 5 players switching on ball, off ball. We certainly face teams that switch 1 through 4 and teams that switch ball screens, and but we don't play a lot of teams in our league that switch, everything. And that's just, K-State's point guard 6'1", and their starting 5 is 6'1". So, it's kind of like you get why they do what they do.
When you're looking at the film, I know how you feel about turnovers, but do you look at it and go, well, that one's sort of forgivable, and then that one is like careless or silly or whatever,
100%. I think there are aggressive turnovers. I think there are sloppy turnovers. I think there are turnovers where we just put our head down and we're not reading the defense. We've spent leading up to OU, and then we even did it against Oklahoma State, working on driving the lane line and then ball side helping and us making that kick out. And we just aren't making it, and we've had the ball stripped multiple times on that drive when the ball side corner is wide open. We've just got to make simple plays. Like sometimes it comes down to you're trying too hard. Jamie turned it over. If they could have given her 2 turnovers on the same possession, they maybe would have, although I know possession didn't actually change. So, but, we had 3-on-1, arguably 3-on-2 break. She throws it right into Collins' hands, trying to throw a no-look pass. The ball ricochets back at her, and if she hadn't been throwing a no-look, she would have caught it more cleanly, and then loses it on the dribble after the ball hits her. That's just like, we got to make simple plays there, and she knows that. If she attacks the Big 12 with her head up and looks at the rim, Collins helps, she either shoots it or she throws a little bounce pass to Kate and we shoot a layup. Like, it's not, I think there are plays like that we don't need to be cute. We're down 12, and I don't think in that moment, don't get me wrong, she's not out there trying to make a highlight play. I don't think that's, kind of her DNA. But when you play the game effectively, you do simple things. You make the game as simple as possible. And, we talk a lot about getting your eyes to the rim, getting your shoulders squared to the rim at the Big 12, and then being a decision maker from there. And I'll give you a perfect example. Katarina got a 3-second call in that exact situation. And she drove it to the Big 12. She jump stopped, so she didn't run anybody over. She didn't. And then she took her time and she threw it to a wide open Bickle. She just didn't vacate the lane. And if she vacates the lane, we get an open shot there. So, we did half of that possession right. So I think you evaluate every turnover for like what it is. Did we make the right play and the wrong read? Jamie drove baseline. The help came over. We work on that little C-up pass all the time. It's got to be a bounce pass. She threw it as a chest pass. The ball gets deflected. It's from me to you. It's hard to throw interior passes with hands around you. So it's the right play, the wrong pass. So I think you evaluate each play differently for what that mistake actually was. And you can tell them, like, hey, you saw the right read, you got to make the right pass. And we work on those things. Like, that's, part of our everyday warm-up is making those little pocket passes, bounce passes, driving at baseline. Is the drift open when we throw the pass to the guard? Is the drop pass open and we throw that pass? Do we throw it early because the help comes early? Is it a wraparound pass because the help comes late? We try to simulate that. The biggest difference between practice and the game is that your speed, the speed of the game, the intensity of the game, the environment of the game. And so, but we have to be able to translate that. We have to be able to translate doing it in practice to converting it in games.
Do Caitlin and Jamie have it in them because Jamie talked about we need to be the ones to kind of step up, hold the other ones accountable, that kind of thing. Do they have that in their nature to kind of maybe get on the younger ones?
I think it's, to me, there's two parts of that. I think it's hard to get on people when you're making mistakes, So I think the cleaner you are, the fewer mistakes you make, the easier it is, and I'll say it this way, and it's a really simple way. So no one on this team is perfect, and I'm not perfect, and none of my staff is. And so if you're mad and holding a freshman accountable because they miss you, but then I can stop the film 8 times where that veteran missed that freshman on a roll wide open, right? Like, you have to be careful, I think it's, and that's the challenge. But what we need is Caitlin's going to bring great effort on every possession. I think our team should listen to Caitlin on every possession because I'm never going to question her energy and effort. I think when Jamie's dialed in, I think absolutely she's capable of holding her teammates accountable. I also think, it comes from, are those guys bringing it in every practice? It's a unique thing in this business, and maybe it's like this in every business. But you have superstars, and you have role players, and you have players that are hopefully going to be a big part of your future, but maybe aren't right now. And I don't want to call them cheerleaders because I don't want it to seem like they're less valuable because they aren't. But your team usually follows your superstars. It's the nature of sports. When your superstars are your hardest workers and your all those things, that's great. But it's oftentimes not the case. And so, and you also have superstars that don't want to lead, they just want to play. And so there's this unique balance of, to me, this team being a collective unit of really good players. And Sarah's been the closest thing we've had to, quote, the most consistent Batman, you know, the one that's made big plays late and had big games against big opponents. You know, when you look at us analytically, Caitlin is our most valuable player, though. Like, you can take Sarah off the floor, and we're not necessarily dropping off offensively or defensively. We are in one area or the other. But when our on-off, no matter what lineup Caitlin's in, we're like plus 30 on offense and plus, like, it's insane. Her on-off numbers are insane, and it doesn't matter who you put her out there with. So, like, from a valuable perspective, she's our most valuable. When it comes to playmaking, you know, it's Sarah. And so, you know, it's sometimes those guys that have to be the ones, to me, and that's not in Sarah's nature, but it needs to be. I think Jamie, her teammates respect that she knows the game. She knows our opponents. She knows their strengths. She always knows her scout. She's more than capable of being a vocal leader and getting people where they need to go. But, you know, it's very easy to, if you don't believe someone's better than you, of respecting their opinion. And it shouldn't be that way. We don't coach them that way, but that's sports. Like, that's sports. I mean, believe me, I had a rookie my third year in the W look at a veteran on my team in a practice setting and say, "Who are you? Like what? Like, who are you?" And I'm thinking to myself, she happened to be drafted third. It just happened to be 10 years ago. And you don't pay attention to the league, so you don't know who she is. But, like, you need to know who she is, because that's someone that's going to make shots for us, which is going to make your job easier. But it's kind of that natural, like, yeah, like, I'm going to respect Brianna Stewart because I know who she is. But I don't necessarily respect the eighth man on a roster that actually makes a team really, really good. So there's some valuable growth opportunities all the time that we're trying to teach, and hopefully, you know, we have players that want to listen, because I tell them all the time, like, y'all don't know, there's a lot you don't know, you know, and being willing to keep learning is the best way for you to become a great player, like wanting to learn. You know, I asked the question yesterday, how many of you guys watched our game? Okay, they had a day off on Sunday. It's Monday. How many of you have watched our game? Half our team hadn't watched our game. Some of them were starters, you know? So if I ask that question and you don't raise your hand, and I'm a young guy and I want to learn from you, but you didn't even watch the game, you're telling me something in that, you know? Like, there's a where I can tell you Caitlin probably watched the game 3 times before practice yesterday. So, like, if you're not willing to put the work in, I know it's a day off and we can't require things, but it just goes to, like, how bad do you want to win if we just got our tails kicked and we haven't watched the game? You're, like, waiting for us to show you the video as opposed to watching it and being able to self-evaluate. So I think there's lots of growth opportunities for us, and that wasn't just our young players. You know, that's players who play key roles on this team, and you're always choosing what's important to you, what's important with your time. You know, and I think I saw a tweet or a post at one point about everyone thinks they don't have enough time, and then if you look at your screen time at the end of the week and the number of hours you've spent scrolling Instagram Reels or TikTok, you had time. That's just how you chose to use your time. And if you get trapped in watching Reels, an hour's gone before before you know it. And I've told this team before, like, I'm not taking anybody's social media. Like, we are way past, and I'm not judging any coach who chooses to do that. I just think if we're going to have a world where our players are allowed to have NIL, you can't take their social media because that's how they build their NIL. And if they're getting paid to do a certain number of posts for whatever company, whatever, they got to have access to it. It's about us teaching them to responsibly use their time and understand that, yeah, get on there and do your posts, but if you're just mindlessly, wasting your time. And so, you can't tell me that nobody had an hour on Sunday on an off day to watch our game. They just chose to do other things. And so, we have to teach them how to use their time more and more efficiently and effectively if they want to be great basketball players.
Coach, just because you mentioned during amongst the depth and all of that, what would you say the chances are, if you can tell us, that we see Asia again this season?
Yeah, they're not good. Once again, I think from a medical perspective, I can't really say specifically, and she needs to answer that question. But I don't think we're going to have a everyday John moment.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you answered this already, if so, we won't go through it again, but was there a hangover from Oklahoma that affected you in Stillwater? And if so, are you past that?
My guess is yes. I mean, I think that, I think there was some of that for sure. But I don't think you can quantify that. I mean, I don't know if that's what made us not guard the first play right, or not run the first play right. I don't know. I mean, I don't think any coach knows and can quantify that. I just think it's realistic to think that you are still kind of like, okay, you're telling yourself, let's go. We got to prove that that's not bothering us. But as soon as things don't go your way, does it snowball? Sure, but I really think that Oklahoma State just, quite frankly, was the more aggressive team, played better, made more shots. I mean, they're making step backs and bank shots, and we're missing transition layups. Like, I mean, I don't know if that's a hangover or that's just us, not playing well, and we just haven't. We've gotten our butts kicked one other time, and that was Arizona. Every other game we've been right there. We've competed in, and so did that affect us? That they were the first team in a while that's just kind of like put it on us at the beginning. Well, if you've got a little bit of a hangover and a team's like taking it to you, and then I thought we came out of the locker room. Look, I thought there were still positives. I liked what Kyla brought the last 3 minutes of the second quarter. I think we came out of the locker room and defended a lot better. And started to execute, but we just turned the basketball over. We just made bad turnovers, in stretches where, hey, it's 12, we've got a 3-on-1 break, and we turn it over and they hit a bank three. So you go from like cutting it to potentially single digits and getting some momentum to giving up a bank three where you're just like, really? I mean, especially after she tiptoed the line and stepped out of bounds, came in bounds, got the ball, and then no one had filled, so I'm just going to shoot it, So no, that was the first. I mean, I got to ask about the game, but definitely not from a hangover perspective.